Story 1. The Upstairs That Didn't Exist. I'm writing this because I still don't have a neat explanation for it. This happened last autumn, when I moved into a small terrace that looked perfectly normal from the street. 2 floors, narrow hall, little kitchen at the back. I live alone, and I'm not someone who goes looking for ghost stories. The first week was uneventful, apart from one thing. Every night, just after midnight, I'd hear a slow creak above my bedroom. Not loud, not dramatic, like someone shifting their weight on old floorboards. I told myself it was the house settling, pipes cooling, the usual list. But it was always the same pattern. One creak, a pause, then 2 more, closer together, like steps. Then nothing for maybe 10 minutes. Then it would start again, as if somebody was pacing in a small rectangle. I started timing it without meaning to. One night I got up and stood in the hallway. The sound seemed to come from above my bedroom ceiling, but there shouldn't have been anything above it except the loft. The loft hatch was in the landing ceiling, and it was sealed shut with layers of paint. The next morning I asked my neighbor, casually, if the houses were noisy. He said, "They can be." Then, after a pause, he asked, "You in number 12? When I said yes, he nodded once like he'd confirmed something to himself. That evening, I looked up the property listing from when I'd viewed it. The floor plan showed 2 bedrooms upstairs. Mine and the spare. Nothing unusual. No third space. No extension. But when I walked upstairs and faced the landing, the wall at the top felt wrong. Like it was a little too close. I know how that sounds, but it's the best way I can describe it. The landing felt shorter than it should. The wall at the top had an old mirror on it, and the mirror always looked slightly tilted, even when I straightened it. That night, the pacing started again. Creak, pause, 2 steps, and then, for the first time, I heard something else. A soft scuff, like fabric on plaster, like a shoulder brushing past a wall. I couldn't sleep, so I did something stupid. I whispered, "Hello?" into the dark. I didn't expect anything. I just wanted to break the spell of listening. And then I heard the steps stop, completely. Like whoever it was had frozen to listen back. My stomach turned cold. I waited. Then, from directly above me, came a single creak. Careful, deliberate. Like someone placing their foot down slowly, choosing the spot. Then another. 2 slow steps, and then nothing, as if they'd stopped right above my bed. The next morning, I rang the letting agent. I asked if there'd ever been building work, anything odd, any history. She said the usual line, she wasn't aware of anything. But when I asked about the loft, she suggested I wait until maintenance can attend. Maintenance arrived 3 days later, a man in his 50s. He climbed up, pushed the hatch open, and shone a torch around. He didn't say anything at first. Then he climbed down and wiped his hands on his jeans like he'd touched dust. He asked, "Have you been up there?" I said no. He nodded, but his face went tight. He said the loft was boarded in an odd way, like someone had tried to create a small room. Not proper walls, just panels. He said he didn't like it and he'd report it. That night the pacing came earlier, 10 past 11. Faster, like agitation. I lay still and listened. Then I heard something that made every hair on my arms lift. A faint tapping, directly above my pillow, as if someone was testing the ceiling with their fingertips. I told myself it was a branch outside, but it wasn't a branch. It was controlled. Tap, tap, tap. 3 taps, then a pause, then 3 again. Like it was trying to communicate but didn't know how. I didn't speak this time. I just pulled the duvet over my head and tried to breathe quietly. After a minute, I heard the taps move. Not across the ceiling, down the wall, like the sound was sliding lower, following the corner of my room. Then I heard it. Not a word. More like a breath shaped into a sound, an exhale that almost formed a name. I couldn't tell what it was, but I knew it wasn't my imagination because it made my ear ring with pressure, like standing too close to a speaker. The next day I packed an overnight bag and stayed with my sister. I didn't go back for a week. When I returned with her, the mirror on the landing was lying face down on the floor. No broken glass, no fallen hook. It had been lifted and placed there carefully. I moved out the following month. The last night I stayed, I left the hall light on. At about 2 a.m., I woke up and the light was off. I hadn't turned it off, and from the landing, I heard 2 slow steps, and then the softest scuff against plaster, like someone squeezing past a wall that shouldn't open. I don't know what was up there. I don't know who paced above me. But I know this. That house had an upstairs that didn't exist on paper, and it felt like something was still trying to find its way out. Story 2. The voicemail from an empty flat. This happened when I worked night shifts and lived in a tiny flat above a closed shop. I'm not dramatic and I don't scare easily, but I've kept the voicemail. I can't listen to it alone. One evening I came home to find my front door unlocked. I know I locked it. I checked every room with my keys between my fingers, feeling silly. Nothing was missing. Nothing moved. Just that creeping sense of someone has been here. I slept with a lamp on. At around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a missed call from unknown. No number, no voicemail. When I checked my call log, it wasn't there, like it had happened and then been erased. The next night, it happened again. Same time, same buzz. But this time it left a voicemail. I pressed play and heard only silence for about 5 seconds. Then a faint sound like breathing through a nose, close to the microphone. I thought it was a pocket dial. Then a voice whispered my name. Not shouted, not clear, like someone testing it, making sure it fit. It was a male voice, calm and flat, and it sounded as if it was in the same room as me. I sat up, lights on, heart pounding. I checked the door, the windows, everything. No one. But my phone showed the voicemail length, 22 seconds. I played it again. This time, at the end, I heard a soft click, like my own front door latch. I stopped sleeping properly. I started leaving my shoes in front of the door so I'd hear them shift if someone came in. I started wedging a chair under the handle. The chair never moved. The shoes never moved. But the calls kept coming. On the 4th night, I got a voicemail that wasn't silence. It was the sound of my kitchen. I know how mad that sounds, but I recognized it. The fridge hum, the faint rattle of the vent, the little metallic tick my radiator did. Then, in the background of the voicemail, something tapped twice. Tap, tap. Exactly like the loose cupboard door that used to swing if the floor vibrated. And then the same calm voice said, "Don't lock it." That sentence rewired something in me. It wasn't a prank. Nobody knew my routines. I locked my door because I lived alone, and I realized with a sick drop in my stomach that the voicemails weren't coming from outside. They sounded like they were being recorded inside my flat. I took the voicemail to the building manager the next morning. He shrugged, said maybe a neighbor, but there was only one other flat on the floor and it was empty, being renovated. He told me the keys were with the office. That evening I did something I'm not proud of. I waited by the peephole with the lights off. At about 3 a.m., my phone buzzed, unknown. And at the exact same moment, I saw a shadow move across the landing light outside, blocking it briefly like someone had stood close. But I heard no footsteps, no breathing, just the shadow and my phone buzzing in my hand. When it stopped, the landing light returned and the voicemail appeared. 19 seconds. I listened. It was my own breathing, recorded. Then my voice, small and sleepy, saying, "Hello?" The exact word I'd whispered into the dark a few nights earlier. After that, silence. And then the calm voice again, right at the end. Good. The next morning I went to the empty flat with the building manager. The place was stripped. No furniture. Dust sheets. Tools. But in the center of the living room floor was a single chair, facing the wall, like someone had been sitting there listening. We both stared at it. He said, "That's not ours. We left." That night I slept at a friend's. My phone buzzed at 3 a.m. anyway, even though I wasn't home. Unknown. Voicemail. The voicemail contained nothing but a long, steady inhale. And then my name again, whispered with more certainty this time, like it knew exactly where I was. I changed my number the next day. I moved out a week later. I've never had a call like it since. But sometimes, when my phone rings from an unknown number, I feel my stomach drop. Because I remember a voice that didn't sound angry or alive, just patient. Story 3. The bedroom with the extra corner. I grew up in a council house that my mom still lives in. It's not old, not creepy, just a normal 70s build. But my childhood bedroom had a corner that always felt added on, like the room had been stretched. The corner was behind my wardrobe. The walls met at an angle that didn't match the rest of the room. My mom said it was just how they built it. But when I was a kid, I'd stare at that corner and feel like something was standing there, facing the wall. I used to wake at night and hear a faint rustle like fabric moving slowly. I'd hold my breath and listen, and it would stop. Then, as soon as I breathed again, it would start, like it could only move when I wasn't paying attention. When I was about 10, I started pushing toys into that corner as a joke. Little offerings, a plastic dinosaur, a marble, a sweet wrapper. Every morning they'd be moved, not far, just nudged into a neater line, like someone had tidied them. I told my mom. She laughed, said maybe I was sleepwalking, but she stopped laughing when one day I left a coin there, heads up, and the next morning it was tails up, flipped perfectly, with no marks on it. Years later, after I'd moved out, I went back to help her decorate. We pulled the wardrobe away. The wallpaper in that corner was newer, different pattern underneath, like it had been redone after something happened. As we scraped it, we found faint pencil marks on the plaster, childlike. Repeated lines like tally marks, dozens of them. And lower down, a small message, half smeared by paint. Stop looking. My mom went quiet. She said she'd never written that, and she hadn't let anyone else decorate. We both stood there, staring at the words, feeling ridiculous and cold at the same time. That night I slept in my old room for the first time in years. I lay facing away from the corner like I always used to. At around 2 a.m., I heard a soft scraping behind the wardrobe space, as if something was dragging fingertips along the plaster. I didn't turn over. I froze. The scraping stopped. Then I felt the mattress dip slightly near my feet, like someone had sat down gently, testing the bed. Not heavy, not enough to bounce me, just a careful pressure. I stared at the ceiling. My mouth went dry. The pressure lifted. Then, very slowly, I heard the soft rustle again, fabric moving, coming closer to my side of the bed. I forced myself to roll over, fast, heart hammering. The room was empty. The corner was dark. But the air above the carpet in that corner looked different, thicker, like heat haze, just for a second. The next morning, my mum asked if I'd been up in the night. I said no. She pointed at the corner. My old toys, ones I hadn't touched in years, were arranged in a neat line along the skirting board, all facing the corner like an audience. I helped her finish decorating and I left. I don't sleep in that room anymore. But my mum still complains that the wardrobe door sometimes opens by itself, just a few inches, like someone is peeking out from an extra corner that was never meant to be there. Story 4. The dog who wouldn't enter the hallway. This happened to my partner and me, and our dog, Murphy. He's not a nervous dog. He'll bark at a bin bag, sure, but he's confident. We moved into a rental that felt clean, bright, and normal. On day 1, Murphy refused to go down the hallway. He'd stand at the entrance like there was an invisible line. If we called him, he'd wag his tail, look apologetic, and then back away. We thought it was the shiny floor. We put down a runner. Same thing. He'd get one paw onto the runner and then pull back as if something in the air had changed. His ears would flatten and he'd lick his lips. At night, we'd hear a gentle tapping from the hallway, like fingernails on wood. Murphy would lift his head and stare at the doorway, perfectly still, tail tucked. Not barking, just watching. One evening I threw a treat into the hallway as a test. Murphy stared at it like it was a trap. Then he did something I've never seen him do. He whined, quietly, then turned his head away as if refusing to acknowledge it. A week in, the tapping became more regular. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. It always stopped when we turned the light on. But sometimes, when we turned the light off again, we'd hear a soft shuffle, like someone adjusting their stance. We checked for pipes, for loose wood, for anything. Nothing. And the weirdest part was, the hallway always felt colder than the rest of the house, even with the heating on. Then Murphy started sitting at the hallway entrance every night at the same time, around 1 a.m., like he was waiting for something. He'd stare into the dark and breathe slowly, but his body would be tense, ready to bolt. I finally said, half joking, "If someone's there, stop freaking the dog out." Immediately, Murphy's head snapped slightly to the left, following something I couldn't see, as if a person had moved. The tapping started again, closer this time, right near our bedroom door at the end of the hall. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Murphy let out a low growl that didn't sound like him at all. My partner turned the light on fast. The hallway was empty, but Murphy refused to move, staring at a point halfway down the hall, eyes wide, like he was tracking something standing still. The next morning, we found muddy paw prints in the hallway. Only, they weren't Murphy's. Smaller, barefoot-shaped, like wet footprints that had started near the front door and stopped at our bedroom door. Murphy never went down that hall again. We moved out 2 months later. The day we left, as we carried the last box out, Murphy walked into the hallway for the first time, straight to the spot where the prints had stopped, and he barked once, sharp and furious, at empty air. Then he backed out, tail tucked, and wouldn't look at the house again. I still don't know what he saw, but I believe him more than I believe my own eyes. Story 5. The lift that stopped on the wrong floor. I work in a modern office block with a lift that's supposed to be reliable. This story sounds small compared to others, but it's the one that made me feel genuinely unsafe, because it happened while I was fully awake, in bright fluorescent light. I stayed late one Friday to finish paperwork. By the time I left, the building was almost empty. Lights dimmed, aircon humming, that quiet you get when a place is shut down but still breathing. I called the lift on the 10th floor. It arrived with the usual ping. I stepped in, pressed G, and looked at my phone. The doors closed. The lift started down. Normal. Then it stopped. Not with a jolt. With a gentle, polite stop, like it had reached a floor. The display said 6. The doors opened. But there is no 6th floor. The building goes 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4. Because of old superstitions and planning quirks. Everyone knows that. There's a sign in reception joking about it. The doors opened onto a hallway that was too dark for an office floor. The carpet was older. The walls were painted a different shade, and the air that came in felt damp, like a basement. I didn't step out. I stared. At the far end of the hall, a single light was on above a door. The light buzzed. Under it, something moved slightly, like a person shifting from one foot to the other. I pressed door close. Nothing happened. I pressed it again, harder. The lift remained open, as if it was waiting for me to do the obvious thing and step out. From the hallway, I heard a faint sound. Not footsteps. A soft, dragging shuffle, slow and deliberate, coming towards the lift. The shape under the light started to move too, sliding out of the brightness. I hit G again and again. Finally, the doors began to close. But as they did, I heard a voice, quiet, close, say, "Too late." It sounded like it came from inside the lift, not the hallway. The doors shut. The lift dropped to the ground floor as if nothing had happened. When I got out, my hands were shaking so badly I couldn't get my keys out. I went straight to security. The guard laughed at first, then checked the lift logs. He went pale and said the lift hadn't stopped between 10 and G. The system showed a clean trip. No floor 6. No door opening. He walked me to my car anyway. On the way, we passed the lift shaft doors in the service corridor. One of them, painted over, unlabeled, had a faint gap at the bottom, like it had been used recently. I don't stay late on Fridays anymore, and sometimes when I'm alone in the lift, I watch the display out of the corner of my eye, terrified I'll see it flicker, and show a floor that doesn't exist.